Okay, so for your reading today, we're going to carry on with The Butterfly Lion and chapter 3 today, which is called Timbavati. Okay, it's a new week, Monday the 4th of May. Bertie was born in South Africa, in a remote farmhouse near a place called Timbavati. It was shortly after Bertie first started to walk that his mother and father decided a fence must be put around the farmhouse to make a compound where Bertie could play in safety. It wouldn't keep the snakes out, nothing could do that, but at least Bertie would be safe now from the leopards and the lions and the spotted hyenas. Enclosed within the compound were the lawn and gardens at the front of the house, and the stables and barns at the back. All the room a child would need or want, you might think, but not Bertie. The farm stretched as far as the eye could see in all directions, 20,000 acres of veld. Bertie's father farmed cattle, but times were hard. The rains had failed too often, and many of the rivers and water holes had been all but dried up. With fewer wildebeest and impala to prey on, the lions and leopards would sneak up on the cattle whenever they could, so Bertie's father was more often than not away from home with his men, guarding the cattle. Every time he left, he'd say the same thing. "Don't you ever open that gate, Bertie, do you hear me? There's lions out there, leopards, elephants, hyenas. You stay put, you hear?" Bertie would stand at the fence and watch him ride out, and he would be left behind with his mother, who was also his teacher. There were no schools for 100 miles, and his mother, too, was always warning inside the fence. "Look what happened in Peter and the Wolf," she would say. His mother was often sick with malaria, and even when she wasn't sick, she would be listless and sad. There were good days when she would play the piano for him and play hide and seek around the compound. Or he'd sit on her lap on the sofa out on the veranda, and she'd just talk and talk about all about her home in England, about how much she hated the wilderness and loneliness of Africa, and about how Bertie was everything to her. But they were rare days. Every morning he'd climb into her bed and snuggle up to her, hoping against hope that today she'd be well and happy. But so often she wasn't, and Bertie would be left on his own again, to his own devices. There was a water hole downhill from the farmhouse, and some distance away. That water hole, when there was water in it, became Bertie's whole world. He would spend hours in the dusky compound, his hands gripping the fence, looking out at the wonders of the veld, drinking spread-legged at the water hole, at the browsing impala, tails twitching, alert, at the water hog snorting and snuffling under the shade of the shingai trees, at the baboons, the zebras, the wildebeest, and the elephants bathing in the mud. But the moment Bertie always longed for was when a pride of lions came padding out of the veld. The impala were the first to spring away. Then the zebra would panic and gallop off. Within seconds, the lions would have the water hole to themselves, and they would crouch to drink. From the safe haven of the compound, Bertie looked and learned as he grew up. By now he could climb the tree by the farmhouse and sit high in its branches. He could see better from up there. He would wait for his lions for hours on end. He got to know the life of the waterhole so well that he could feel the lions were out there even before he saw them. Bertie had no friends to play with, but he always said he was never lonely as a child. At night he loved reading his books and losing himself in the stories, and by day his heart was out in the veld with the animals. That was where he yearned to be. Whenever his mother was well enough, he would beg her to take him outside the compound, but her answer was always the same. "I can't, Bertie. Your father has forbidden it," she'd say, and that was that. The men would come home with their stories of the veld, of the family of cheetahs sitting like sentinels on their coach at the end, of the leopard they had spotted high in his tree larder watching over his kill, of the hyenas who they had driven off, of the herd of elephants which had stampeded the cattle, and Bertie would listen wide-eyed, agog. Again and again he asked his father if he could go with him to help guard the cattle. His father just laughed, patted his head, and said it was a man's work. He did teach Bertie how to ride and how to shoot too, but always within the confines of the compound. Week in, week out, Bertie had to stay behind his fence. He made up his mind, though, that if no one would take him out into the veld, then one day he would go by himself. But something always held him back. Perhaps it was one of those tales he'd been told of the black mamba snakes whose bite would kill you within 10 minutes, of hyenas whose jaws would crunch you to bits, of vultures who would finish off anything that was left so that no one would ever find even the bits. For the time being he stayed behind the fence, but the more he grew up, the more his compounds became a prison to him. One evening, Bertie must have been about 6 years old by now. He was sitting high up in the branches of his tree, hoping against hope the lions might come down for their sunset drink, as they did often. He was thinking of giving up, for it would soon be too dark to see much now, when he saw a solitary lioness come down to the waterhole. Then he saw that she was not alone. Behind her, on unsteady legs, came what looked like a lion cub, but it was white, glowing white in the gathering gloom of dusk. While the lioness drank, the cub played at catching her tail, and then, when she had her fill, the two of them slipped away into the long grass and were gone. Bertie ran inside, screaming with excitement. He had to tell someone, anyone. He found his father working at his desk. "Impossible," said his father. "You're seeing things that aren't there, or you're telling fibs, one of the two." "I saw him, I promise," Bertie insisted. But his father would have none of it, and sent him to his room for arguing. His mother came to see him later. "Anyone can make a mistake, Bertie dear," she said. "It must have been the sunset. It plays tricks on your eyes sometimes. There's no such thing as a white lion." The next evening Bertie watched again at the fence, but the white lion cub and lioness did not come. Nor did they the next evening, nor the next. Bertie began to think he must have been dreaming it. A week or more passed, and there had only been a few zebras and wildebeest down at the waterhole. Bertie was already upstairs in bed when he heard his father riding into the compound, and then the stamp of his heavy boots on the veranda. We got her, he was saying. "Huge lioness. She's taken 6 of my best cattle in the last 2 weeks. Well, she won't be taking any more." Bertie's heart stopped. In that one terrible moment, he knew which lioness his father was talking about. There could be no doubt about it. His white lion cub had been orphaned. But what if, Bertie's mother was saying, what if she had young ones to feed? Perhaps they were starving. "So would we be if we let it go on. We had to shoot her," his father retorted. Bertie lay there all night listening to the plaintive roaring echoing through the veld, as if every line in Africa was sounding a lament. He turned his face into his pillow and could think of nothing but the orphaned white cub, and he promised himself there and then that if ever the cub came down to the waterhole looking for his dead mother, then he would do what he had never dared to do. He would open the gate and he would go out and bring him home. He would not let him die out there all alone. But no lion cub came to the waterhole. All day, every day, he waited for him to come. But he never came. Okay, that's the end of chapter 2. Your 5 quick fire round questions and where to find them are all at the end of the questions. So, question 1, where was Bertie born? Question 2, what does the word compound mean on page 17? Why was having a compound important? Why was Bertie's father away, often away from home? What has happened to the lioness? And what does Bertie's heart stop tell you about the way he was feeling? Why was he feeling that way? Stems. Make sure you answer in full sentences, please. Pause the video and unpause when you have had a go in your books. Okay, well done. So question 1, the answer is Bertie was born in a farmhouse in South Africa. Okay, the word compound means an enclosure or a small area of space. A compound was important so Bertie could play safely away from the danger of the wild animals. Bertie's father was often away from home as he had to guard the cattle. Okay, that was his job. He had to make sure that no none of the wild animals came and killed the cattle. The lioness has been shot by Bertie's dad on page 26 and page 27. And Bertie's heart stopped tells us that Bertie was feeling upset and shocked, maybe a little bit sick as well. He felt this way because his dad had killed the lioness he had seen, and he knew she had a lion cub who would be alone. Okay, so he's perhaps feeling a little bit upset about that, and a little bit sorry, a little bit guilty. Okay, so any of those sorts of words would have been good in your answer, as long as you backed it up with why. You're 2, and you've only got 2 questions today for your brain power, because both of them might be quite long. Okay, question 6, write a paragraph telling us what you've learnt about Bertie's family in this chapter. What do they do? What type of people were they? Okay, so there's lots. I've not given you a page for this, guys, because there's quite a lot of information scattered throughout the chapter. So it might be that you want to go through, if you've got a paper copy of it, if you've managed to print it off, highlight bits of information about the mum, the dad, okay, and write that into your paragraph. Okay, but check your sentences make sense, please. And question 7, how do you think Bertie feels most of the time? Why do you think this? Use evidence from the text on page 20 and page 22. Okay, pause while you have a go at those 2 questions. Information about mum. Okay, so what does it tell us about mum? So it does actually, there were no schools. His mother was also warning him to stay inside. So she was perhaps, oh, sorry, I've drawn through that. She was probably a little bit worried that he was going to get hurt. We know that his mum was his teacher. Okay, so that red underlined is his mum. His dad, we'll go with green. Bertie's father was more often than not away from home, with his men guarding the cattle. Okay, we know up here Bertie's father farmed cattle, but times were hard. Okay. It also sounds, again, he sounds quite worried. Do you hear me? You stay put, you hear? That sounds to me as well like he might be quite strict. Okay, he might be quite strict. Okay, let's have a look. So we're going to go back to red because we're looking at mum. Okay, his mum was often sick with malaria. Even when she wasn't sick, she'd be listless and sad. Okay, and it says here there were good days where she'd play with him and that she'd talk about her home in England and that things would be all fun. But they were rare, and we can see that up here. Okay, so from this information that Michael Mupperger has given us about mum, we're thinking that she doesn't particularly like Africa. Okay, we've got here the loneliness of Africa, and how Bertie was everything to her. So again, we've got that she's probably quite lonely. We get the impression from that she's not got any friends, or she's got very few friends. Okay, Bertie was everything to her, and every morning he'd climb into her bed. That shows us that they're quite close. Okay, the mum and Bertie. The dad is there less often, so we don't know as much about him, other than that he's quite strict and that he farms cattle. So you've got here some information that on the good days Bertie's mum would be his friend. Okay, she'd tell him, she'd play the piano, they'd play hide and seek. Okay, but often she wasn't. Okay, and on page 20 here you've got this quote, Bertie would be left on his own. And that word again, I'm going to circle that word again gives us the impression that he's left on his own a lot. Okay, he's an only child, there are no other children in the household. He was left on his own again, So it's almost like he's got nothing to do. It says here, to his own devices. So he's left to entertain himself. So have a think. In your answer, you should have included something that he might feel quite isolated, quite lonely, quite upset. Okay, you've got here as well, page 22. Bertie had no friends to play with. He always said he was never lonely as a child. Okay, but he must have been quite lonely, mustn't he, if he had no friends to play with, and his only friend really was his mum. And some days she was okay, but the majority of days she wasn't very well, and she didn't do fun things with him. Okay, so that, if something like that is included in your answer, then that is fab. Guys, you should have today 2 quite lengthy answers. Can you send them over to us as an email so we can have a little look at how you're getting on with your comprehension? Thank you. Well done, guys.
Hi guys, hope you all had a lovely weekend and you're ready to get back to your learning. I'm just going to go through the answers from the Do It and Secure It on Friday. Okay, so question 1, you needed to sort the times from latest to earliest. Okay, so you were looking first of all at the PM times because that was in the afternoon or the evening. We're looking for the biggest number to start in our hours, so it would have been 10:13, then on to 8:55, then 5:30. Then looking at our AMs, 9 is obviously bigger than 2, so your answer should have looked like this. Okay. Number 2, you needed to write the digital time to match the analog clocks. Okay, you needed to include AM or PM. So, question A said it was in the morning, so we needed to make sure we'd written AM. Okay. And then we need to have a look here. So our minute hand is on the 9, so that's going to be our 45. And the hour that's on this side is 7 because it's coming up to 8. So you should have had 7:45 a.m. or 7:45 a.m. Okay. And then onto your evening, you should have written PM here. Your minute hand is on the 20. And it's just gone past the 5, so we should have had 5 or 05:20 p.m. Okay. Now on to number 3. You had to match the clock to the most appropriate activity. So going to school, having lunch, and waking up. So hopefully we would all agree that waking up is the first thing we're going to do. So that's going to be the earliest time. Now our earliest time on here is 7:05 a.m. Then we've got going to school and having lunch. Now, we usually go to school before we have lunch. So if we put going to school down at 8:25 and having lunch at 12:05 p.m. Okay. If you've not got those right and you're not sure where you've gone wrong, please just send me an email because I'm more than happy to go through it with you guys. Okay? Don't panic. Okay, so for your Secure It, it says Steph's bus arrives at the station at 11:25 a.m. Ben's bus arrives at 3:45 p.m. My bus arrives after Ben's because 11 comes after 3. Is Steph correct? Explain how you know. Now, I'm hoping we've all noticed that her bus, although it's 11, it's AM and Ben's is PM. Therefore, Steph is incorrect and because her bus comes first because hers is in the morning and Ben's is in the afternoon. So any sort of way explanation like that would have been correct. Give yourself a big tick. Okay, so today we're going to explore the 24-hour digital clock up to 12 hours. So we're just going to be looking at the morning. All right, we're looking at our AM today. Okay, so we all know that a day has 24 hours. And a clock has 12 hours because we've got 12 numbers around the edge. Therefore, this means that each time will happen twice every day. So, for example, we have 2:30 in the morning and we have 2:30 in the afternoon. So because there's 2 different times, we need to make sure that we can write them in different ways to show to people whether we're talking about the morning or the afternoon, okay? So one way we can do this is to write AM and PM, which obviously we looked at on Friday. So we've got 2:30 AM to show it was in the morning and 2:30 PM for the afternoon. Now, the 24-hour digital clock. We looked a little bit at writing our numbers, our times digitally on Friday, okay? So now this is building onto it because this is showing you the 24-hour clock. So a 4-digit format is used. So you have 2 digits for the hour, then your colon, and 2 for the minutes. So this here, where we've got our 2:30, needs a 0 before it, okay? Because there's got to be 2 digits for the hour. Okay, so to convert between 12 and 24-hour times in the morning, you've just got to change the format. So the hours stay the same. So you've got 6 a.m. and that just becomes 0600. 10:30 simply becomes 10:30 a.m. It is that simple, guys. So let's have a go. 2:45 a.m. How would you write that as a 24-hour time? You can pause me and write it down if you want to have a go and then come back. While you're doing that, have a think. 03:15, what would that be as a 12-hour time? Okay, hopefully you've had a go at that. So 2:45 a.m. becomes 02:45 and 03:15 is 3:15 a.m. Okay, can you have a go at writing down the time on this analog clock? I want you to write it digitally and know it's a.m. Okay, so what is the time? Pause me while you think and then come back. Okay, so hopefully you've worked out that the minute hand is on the 11, so we know that we've got 55 in here. And if we look to the right of the hour hand, it's pointing to 4, so we should have put a 0 for 4:55 or 5 to 5. Okay, so before you go on to your do it, I'd like you to have a little go at this. What would the digital time be if it was 16 minutes earlier than the time shown on the clock? So your best bet, I think, is to write down the digital time and then take 16 minutes off, okay? Pause me while you have a go and then come back when you're ready. Okay, so if we look at the time at the moment, it is 10, because we've just gone past it. We've got our colon, 26, okay? Because obviously the 5 is 25 and then we're one more, so 26. Now, if we're going to take 16 minutes off there, let's do it like this. So we're down to 0. 2 take away 1 is 1. So it would have been 10, 10. Well done if you got that, because that was tricky. So for your do it today, you need to look at the analog clocks in question 1 and you need to convert them to digital times. They are all showing you AM times, okay? Number 2, you need to work out what would the digital time be if it was 12 minutes later than the time shown on the clock. So similar to the one we've just done, okay? Work out the time that it's showing you on the clock and then take 12 minutes away. Okay, so if you get through your do it super quick and you want a bit of an extra challenge, I've done an extra do it challenge for today. So Jack arrives at the train station at the time shown in the morning. Which trains could he catch? Okay, so you've got your clock here. It's the morning, and then you've got your train departures here. So you need to work out which of these 4 trains can he catch, and then how long does he need to wait for those trains that he's going to catch, okay? Okay, then finally for your secure it today, Ryan arrives at the cinema at the time shown on the analog clock, okay? He thinks he's on time to watch Space Wars. Is he correct? Explain why, okay? So this analog clock, it's in the morning. What time does he arrive? And is he going to make it for Space Wars? Okay, best of luck, guys. Any problems, just email me and I'll be more than happy to go through it with you. Okay, I'll let you know the answers tomorrow. Bye.
Good morning, everybody. It's Monday and this is our writing challenge for today. So, first of all, we're going to do our warm-up work, and this week we're going to be thinking about verb tenses, okay? So these are our verbs that we were talking about last week. So our verbs are our action words. They tell us what's happening within the sentence. But these verbs can happen in the past, in the present, or in the future. So one way I like to remember this and try and work it out is if I'm doing the past tense, I put the word yesterday in front of the sentence. And if I'm doing the present tense, I put the word today in front of the sentence. So today we're just going to have a little look at these because you're going to be doing these as a warm-up work throughout the week. And we're going to do a little bit more on tenses as we go through. But if we have a little look to start with at this first one, it's in the present tense. So that's a today one. So today, Joe is skipping through the forest. So if we think about what's happening in the sentence, what Joe is doing, he is skipping. So if I wanted to start my sentence in the past tense with yesterday, we'd say yesterday, Joe skipped through the forest. Okay, so have a little look at this one. This one's in the past tense. So yesterday, imagine, Joel ran down the road to his grandma's house. How could you write that starting with the word today? Today, Joel to his grandma's house. Pause the video here, have a little think, try and do that second one for me and come back to me with your answers. Okay, let's see how you got on. So, were you able to change from the present tense to the past tense? So, Joe is skipping through the forest becomes Joe skipped through the forest. And this one was the past tense back to the present tense. So Tim ran down the road to his grandma's house. Did you get Tim is running down the road to his grandma's house? Have a little think. What do you notice about these present tense verbs? What's similar about the tenses? Because we're going to be thinking about that when we move on to our learning today. Okay. So today's learning is all about writing in the past and present tense using regular and irregular verb forms. Okay, so we've talked about past and present already, but regular and irregular is about spelling. So we're going to have a look not only about when the sentences took place, but also how we spell some of those different verbs as well as we go through today. So first of all, let's remind ourselves what verbs are. Okay, so verbs tell us that someone or something is doing something, or maybe they're feeling something, or they're being something. It's that action part of the sentence. So if we have a little look here, Basanti loves her cat. What is Basanti doing? Have you spotted the verb in that one? Okay, Basanti's cat sleeps all day long. What's the verb in this sentence? What's Basanti's cat doing in this sentence? This one's a feeling, okay? So the sentence is I sympathise. Which of the two words is the verb in that sentence? And I absolutely adore my budgie. What do I do? What's my action within that sentence? Hopefully, as you've gone through, you've noticed that these are the verbs. So we've got sleeps and adore. I love, I adore it. And we've got loves and sympathise. That's the action that's happening in each of these sentences. So our verbs usually have the name of a person or a thing, the noun, in front of them. And that helps us to spot which one the verb is. Okay. So all verbs have a tense, okay? And the tense tells us when the action happened. So is it today? Is it yesterday? Is it tomorrow? When did the things happen? So if we have a look here, Basanti's cat caught a mouse. The verb is caught. Now is that happening in the past or in the present? Okay, have a look at this one. My budgie sings all day long. Our verb is sings. Have a think. Is that sings now or did they sing yesterday? Let's have a little think. Is it in the past or is it in the present? Okay. So, Basanti's cat caught a mouse. That means that he's already done it. So it happened in the past. So if we wanted to change that sentence, like it says here, into the present tense, what could that sentence be? Basanti is a mouse. Have a little go, write it down. Okay, then if you come back, we have a little look at the budgie. My budgie sings all day long. She sings all day long. It's happening right now. It's happening in the present, okay? So if I wanted to say yesterday, so I'm writing it in the past tense, I said yesterday my budgie, all day long. This is an irregular verb. It's not as normal spelling. So have a think. Yesterday, my budgie, all day long. What's the irregular verb that we're missing? Okay? So for example with this, I play football every Saturday. Or I played football every Saturday if I've stopped doing it now. So now we're going to have a look at a little video to help us to talk about the different tenses. Have a little watch.
Free biscuits. Oh, who will fall for that? When we talk about things that haven't happened yet, we call it the future tense. We often use the word will in front of a verb. Looks like he will be sticky. Seriously? You really do fall for everything. When something is happening now, we use the present tense. Now he is sticky. Sentences that describe something that's already happened and use words like was are in the past tense. He was sticky. Every verb has a past, present and future tense form. Licked, licking and will lick. Hey, no, don't you even think about... Oh, yuck.
Okay, hope you enjoyed that and it helped to explain that past, present and future tense a little bit more. We're going to go into this in a little bit more detail now. So, verbs all have a tense. They tell us when the action happens. So if we have a little look at some of these as an example, we've got the present tense, the sheep walks. He's doing it now. The sheep walks. She carries a bag. You can see that there. She's doing it now. She carries a bag. I eat an ice cream. I'm doing it right now. And you do not have to smile. Happening now. So let's look at the past tense versions. So the sheep walks becomes the sheep walked, looking at the sound that's on the end of these. She carries a bag becomes she carried a bag. I eat an ice cream becomes I ate an ice cream. And you do not have to smile becomes yesterday you did not have to smile. So do becomes did. Okay, so for regular verbs, I said to look out for the spellings, didn't I? We're looking at verbs that end in ed. So all of these are past tense. They happened yesterday and they all end in ed. And they show us that the action's happened and it's finished. So we walked, we jumped, we scored, we danced, we skated, we listened, we balanced, okay? And some verbs, although they're happening in the past and they are complete, they don't use that ed spelling, and we call those irregular verbs, okay, because their spelling is different. So if we look at ran, our regular verb in the present tense is run, and the same for won is win, did is do, and threw is throw, okay? So the spelling changes a little bit. We looked at one earlier, didn't we, and it was sing and sung. So you can see that some verb forms don't just pop an ed on the end. We have to listen very carefully for them. So now we're going to have a little go together, and this is our writing for today. And we're going to be thinking about the verb tenses, and we're going to be swapping them round and then having a little go at using them to help us to order a story. So to start with, what tense do you think these sentences are? Are they happening in the past? Have they already happened? Or are they happening now? Okay, listen carefully, see if you can work it out. It rains and rains. Basanti carries the cat. We do not want to go, and we are lost. What verb, what tense are these sentences in? Okay, you're absolutely right. They are in the present tense. It's happening right now. So it's rains and rains. Basanti carries the cat. We've got no ed, so it must be the present tense. We do not want to go, and we are lost, remembering that do and are also our verbs. So my challenge for you now is to change them from the present tense into the past tense, okay? So instead of today, it rains and rains, we will say yesterday, it and... How are you going to change it? Remember, try and put that word yesterday in front of it, because that helps you to write your sentences. So pause the video now, have a go at those 4 sentences and come back to me when you've finished. Okay, super. Let's have a little look at the answers then. So we've changed them from the present, it rains and rains, hopefully, to the past, which was it rained and rained. We're using those eds, those irregular verb forms, okay? So then we've got Basanti carries the cat, becomes Basanti carried the cat. We do not want to go, becomes we did not want to go. So our do becomes our did, an irregular verb, And again, we are lost becomes we were lost. So we've got two irregular verbs there. Okay? We're going to have a look a little bit more of this today. So can you change these sentences from the past tense into the present tense? So now we're looking to try and put that today in front of our sentence to see if we can make sense. So yesterday my budgie squawked. Today my budgie is... Pause the video now, have a little go, and we'll come back with the answers in a second. Okay, let's see how you got on. So yesterday my budgie squawked. Today my budgie squawks, or my budgie is squawking, you could have. Okay, Basanti grabbed her coat. Today Basanti grabs her cat, not coat. Okay, we've got we found the cage as the past tense. Today we find the cage. And then I was relieved becomes today I am relieved, one of those irregular forms at the end. Okay. So I hope you managed to get those answers correctly today. If you haven't, make sure you pause the video, you go back, you think about it and you go through it. We're going to carry on with our verb forms tomorrow. But that's it for our writing today, a nice short one for today. And then we're coming back with some progressive verb forms tomorrow. We've got new connected curriculum this week. So this week's connected curriculum is all about our topic, the world of wonders. And on that this week, we're going to be having a look at erosion and particularly the features of coastlines and why we get certain shapes and features in our rocks, okay? So within your pack this week, you've got an essential task. So there's a bit of work in there that everybody would like, they'd like everyone to have a little look at. There's a couple of little videos to watch that shows you how erosion happens, and there's some information for you to read about the different types of features of coastlines. And then once you've researched that information, you found out a bit more about it, there are 4 possible challenges if you want to complete them this week to show us what you know about the different features of coastlines. One of them is to write a newspaper report about the Holbeck Hotel, to find out all about what happened there and write about it. The second challenge is to make a model to show the different formations caused by coastal erosion, the different shapes that are made, so it's a bit of model building. Challenge 3 this week, if you want to have a go at it, is about preventing erosion. So thinking about different ways to defend ourselves from the seas and to write a letter to the Prime Minister to ask him to put in your sea defences. And challenge 4 this week, if you are interested in that, is to create an explanation text or a booklet or a poster or a video to show other people how the different coastal features are formed. All of the information for this is in your work packs, along with all the links to the videos and lots of resources to help you. So make sure you have a little look, and we shall see you tomorrow for another day of our learning adventure. Bye everyone.